Welcome to Uncopyable Women in Business. I'm your host, Kay Miller, also known as Muffler Mama. Stay tuned as I, along with my guests, give you marketing, sales, and personal branding strategies that will give you an uncopyable advantage. Today, I'm excited to have Courtney Zentz on the show. Courtney is the founder of Tiny Transition Sleep Consulting, which she started to help families with young children build healthy sleep habits. Now, she's combined her passion for sleep coaching with her love of business and is a successful speaker and coach. Courtney, welcome to the podcast.
I appreciate the time today, Kay, and hi to everyone. So I, much like many in their 20s, graduated from college and got my master's degree in marketing and finance and started to work in the corporate world. So I spent about 15 years in corporate marketing and sales operations. And we were talking a bit about when I got my master's, I had to write my thesis. And just to show you at the age of 43 now, how full circle life comes, I wrote my thesis at the time on something called kaleidoscope career types, right? So it was before I started Tiny Transitions. I was single. I was motivated. At the time, my mom was dying when I was in graduate school. I remember those phone calls every night on the way home. I would talk to her. And I wanted to be challenged. So I wrote this whole thesis on how, like, in your 20s, you're challenged and you're climbing the corporate ladder and you want to make money and you want to make a name for yourself. And I wanted to be in the C-suite, right? And then in your 30s, how this shift happens, right? And you want to be balanced and you're trying to find balance in wherever you are in your life. And then in your 40s, how you move into authenticity. And it was based off of a couple different writers at the time that I used who have these kaleidoscope career types. And I really talked about that in my thesis. And it's interesting because I was just saying to you before we started the podcast, how I'm basically living my thesis without having known it at the age of 43 now, which has been a cool full circle moment. I think to your point, that manifestation of when you write things down, they can come true and that subconscious side of things. So it's been certainly an interesting journey the past 20 years.
Yeah. We did talk about, we didn't even use the word manifest, but I think that's part of it. We all have different concepts of what does manifest mean. Obviously, it's thinking about how you think life should go, you want life to go, but then you, of course, have to do the work to make all that happen. But you were pretty insightful for just a young thing there in your 20s, and that has come to pass. What happened to make you want to start this company, Tiny Transitions? And as a mother of a 32-year-old, it's been a long time since I've had to deal with sleep issues as a mom. But I'll tell you what, not having a good night's sleep can ruin everything. It's way worse than a bad hair day, right? So I think it started from your own experience. So why don't you jump off there and let us know that part?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was working my way up the corporate ladder. I had gotten married a little bit later than I would say some. I was early 30s at the time in which we got married and had our first child, who was a little boy named Max. He is 10 years old now. And I ignorantly thought that I would be home on maternity leave, eating bonbons with milk shooting out of my nipples and managing my team of 40 from my couch while my baby slept so perfectly and I could super type A, cutting the grass and managing the garden and cleaning the house and mulling around with this baby, right? And it was the hardest 12 weeks of my life to be home on maternity leave with a child. And I felt completely lost, completely alone, completely depressed in what was supposed to be the happiest time of my life. And I'm like, wow, this really sucks for me. And why do I feel this way? Everybody said this is going to be like the greatest thing I'm so blessed to be able to have a kid. And then to feel this way felt almost like wrong at the time. And I was like, gosh, there's no support. My mom's passed on. I'm alone. My husband was like the controller for eBay internationally. So it's month end. I got to go back to work. And I'm like, okay, I have this newborn and I didn't know what to do. And that's where it really started it. I was like, I'm trying to figure out how to nurse and pump and be prepared to go back to work. And I do not function well when I don't sleep through the night. And it was a really rude awakening for me, honestly, as somebody who likes not necessarily like control. Like I'm a pretty chill person, not at all demanding, but like I get it done and I'm very organized about it. And you can control nothing when you have a new child. And I just wasn't prepared for that.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I'm sensing that you are a type A plus person. I think you admitted to that. and you can do so many other things so well, so effectively, you're successful. And then they send you home with this little blob of a person. And it's like, what? First of all, you don't know what you're doing. And like you said, there's nursing and pumping and all these kinds of things. And then you're not getting any sleep, which a lot of people that I know that are really high energy like you, they go and then they hit the pillow and they are out for the night. Is that how you usually are?
Yeah, absolutely. And I sleep every night. I probably sleep more now in my 40s than I ever did in my life, but I'm a 9 to 5 person. I am the most productive at 5 a.m. I am no more useful after 8 o'clock. I'm asleep at 9 o'clock at night every night. And so when you have a kid, it's, wait a minute, this is a nightmare. And I came up with tiny transitions because of that. I was like, I can't believe that at 8 weeks, like things are still such a mess. I don't know what I'm doing. And yes, I'm getting a little more comfortable. And yes, I know how to use my pump now, but I'm a mess and I got to go back to work in 4 weeks. This can't be how people function. It seems so foreign to me. And I really leaned into the science and was like, okay, what in this could I control? And I was nursing, so I couldn't really know how much milk my child was getting and whether or not it was enough. I didn't understand sleep and how to get more of it. And so I started to look at the science and I looked at the nursing and the sleep and I worked myself backwards to go, okay, if I weighed my son every time I fed him, I would then know the number of ounces he got. Okay, great. You need 24 to 32 ounces of milk to sleep through the night. So when you get that in the day and you have the ability to settle, you'll sleep through the night. So I was like, okay, I can control that. I can control when I pumped and how I did certain things. So I took the science side of it and really started to understand the sleep science and then the nutritional science. And I changed things pretty rapidly from 8 to 10 weeks. So within 2 weeks, it was like, oh, wow, like my whole world feels more manageable and light and airy. Wow, I wish I knew that 8 weeks ago. And you come home from the hospital and I remember they made sure we couldn't leave the hospital without our son being in his car seat. And then you get home and there's no manual. There's nobody to help you. So that was really the start of it. And I just...
back then we didn't even have AI to ask, right? We couldn't even chat GPT. Hey, I've got this baby. What do I do?
What do I do with the newborn? And everybody, my husband and I are very much like equal participants in everything. And we just support each other and we work back and forth. When at 8 weeks, he was like, you need to just tell me like how I can help you. And I'm like, I don't know, man. Wash the bottles. I shouldn't have to tell you to wash the bottle. And he's just get a whiteboard. And at the time I was like, I'm going to stab you with this pen in the jugular. And I was like, you know what? I am going to get a whiteboard in passive aggressive type A or the biggest whiteboard ever. And I was like, change the diapers, do the laundry. But it made us better because like I didn't have to ask him to change the diaper genie. And he knew to just go pick up the groceries and change the diaper genie and do the laundry. So we just started to figure out as a team, like how to do this. And we got Max sleeping through the night. I felt really confident with what I was doing from a pumping standpoint and nursing. We formula fed as we needed. I went back to work at 12 weeks full time. My son went to daycare full time. It was really that change where I was like, oh my gosh, I love this. I love all of this and the fact that I could control this and so many other parents couldn't, right? I was in these weekly support groups at the time and they didn't really have Facebook groups and membership communities and everything like that. But I just realized there was like a hole to fill. And so I did some research, became a certified sleep consultant, became a certified lactation counselor, became a postpartum doula, got my infant mental health certification. So I started to like go back and do some different curriculums that helped me from a science standpoint understand what I was doing. And Tiny Transitions was born out of that, like tiny transitions back to work, tiny transitions into parenthood, tiny transitions to nursing or away from nursing, or tiny transitions to adding food. So I named the company appropriately because it was like everything for me was a tiny transition to something that helped me as a parent feel better when I felt similarly like some of my friends who went through it after me, I could help because they were also going through these transitions that for all of us were different, right? And we all have different experiences postpartum. And I suffered from postpartum intrusive thoughts, which I didn't even know was a thing at the time, Kay, but it was like, if I go outside and then I trip on the sidewalk and then I fall and Max is in the carrier and I crush his head, well, I'm not going to go outside. And I just became like this shell of a human over these 12 weeks because I'm like, okay, what am I doing? I'm sleep deprived. I'm like hallucinating. Now I'm having these intrusive thoughts. I'm like, this is a nightmare. And so that was really just my motivation. I actually started it as a side kind of hustle. I did it on the nights and weekends. And I built the business every year. It just doubled again. Now we're 10 years in and 8 employees. We got folks all over the country. I mentor sleep coaches all over the world now who are doing it, but just didn't understand the business side because that was where I started in corporate marketing and finance. And I'm blessed today to be able to do both and do them well. But that was where it started. It was just like filling a need at the time as like a little bit of a side hustle. It was something new and different outside of the corporate marketing work I did for at the time a copier company, which copiers aren't super sexy or really in demand, though everyone needs one in their office. They weren't like, I wasn't selling anything sexy, working at Sephora or something cool. Like, God.
Hey, you're talking to somebody who sold automotive exhaust products. So yeah, I know all about not sexy and not cool. But a couple things jump out at me about your story. And I love the name of your company, Tiny Transitions. And it's like I looked at that and I didn't really think it through. And then when I did, I thought, oh yeah, anytime you try to take this giant leap, I'm going to change everything. Starting tomorrow, I'm going to be a new person. This is my daily and my morning routine. This is how I do everything. That doesn't work. I've tried it. Trust me. But when you think of transitions, that all the little things that happen, and if you can improve each one, that's really the key to success. You started this business out of your own situation, your own need, your own problem. And for you listening, this is something that's really doable, especially in this day and age. You mentioned side hustle. Who doesn't have a side hustle anymore? I shouldn't say it, not everybody, but it's really such an opportunity for you listening. So to look at Courtney and how she had a problem and you found the solutions. And it sounds like you have the kind of mind, obviously, that you when you wrote that thesis and you like to analyze things and solve problems. So you solved those problems for yourself, which obviously a lot of other women and families shared. So I think that's really encouraging that you were able to start this business with your passion and then turn it into something extremely profitable. So how did you, what things would you, the listeners, what would be helpful for them to know about how you did grow that business? And what are some of the things, the key things you learned along the way?
Yeah, there is no silver bullet. Honestly, I think the problem in today, in a 2024 world or 2025 soon, depending on when you're listening to this, is that social media makes it seem like you can just launch a business and make 6 figures next month working an hour from home while your baby sleeps. That is not accurate, right? And so there's an aspect to it of, I started the business because I never wanted somebody to feel like I did postpartum, right? So I had a motivation to help and to make the world a better place, right? And then I also had the business sense to understand how to properly do it. So I think you might have an idea or a passion for something, and then you have to execute on the passion. So first and foremost is doing the research, right? And understanding like, how do you fill the gap? They talk a lot about this like blue ocean opportunity of filling a gap where it's needed. 10 years later, there's a lot of sleep consultants right now. Some of them have paid $200 to get trained online in some basic course. I don't know that I'd want that person working with my baby.
And you don't want the cheapest course to help the most valuable human being on the earth at the time, right?
And it's an interesting space right now because everybody's a coach. You're a coach or you're a consultant. And I have a hard time trusting people because even everybody's, I'm a business coach. I'm like, really? What business did you run? And they're like, I run the business of teaching you how to run a business. And that's made me 7 figures. I'm like, so you've never actually run a business and you're going to fail, right? And I think you have to be open to the fact that 1, you don't know everything you're doing. 2, it actually takes time and effort. Like for many years, I did it as a side hustle, but make no mistake, I was up every morning at 5 a.m. and at 5:01, I was on my computer till my kids got up at 8. And I hustled and I worked at night after they went to bed. And then after I did it full time, I still work probably way too many hours for what I'm doing when I'm trying to hone into that in 2025. But a 60-hour work week for me is not uncommon. And I do that by choice. And I still am done work every day at 3:00. When I sit at Irish dance for 3 hours at night in the car, I go inside instead and work. But there is an aspect of this that you have to understand where you're filling the gap and then how you're going to execute to get there. People that are like, sold a dream of starting this online business from your cell phone for 5 minutes a day. That doesn't work. Those people are selling something that's probably affiliate revenue that's going to make them their money. So you got to understand what gap you're trying to fill. We just last week launched Pay What You Can Afford sleep coaching. And it's interesting because I mentor about 200 sleep consultants now all over the world who are technically my competitors. but they're not. Like, there's enough babies in the world that don't sleep. There's enough toddlers that don't sleep and adults that don't sleep. We work with all of them, but I don't ever look at it as competition. It's community. And if I can teach other people how to be better at business, right, that fills my cup. And so there's never competition in anything because you're always trying to do things different and better. And to what you and Steve do, find your moose, right? Who is that avatar you want to work with? But like, we just last week launched this Pay What You Can Afford program. And immediately some of the consultants that I mentor who are sleep consultants all over the world are like, how would you do that? I'm like, yeah, but see, you guys are all trying to serve the ticket up here, which is make as much money as you can from a client. Like, I'm trying to serve a greater need in the community, which is that not everybody can afford private sleep coaching, and you can still make a quality product over here that serves the masses, and especially an economy that needs it. So I think just like looking at a business for whatever your idea is, filling it with something you're passionate about, and then trying to do it different and better. And that's even what I teach when I'm doing the business mentoring is don't stop looking at your competition. They're not your competition. Like, you got to look at how you do it different and better, and then build your company to stand out from them. Don't offer the same things they do. Look at what your ideal avatar is valuing and build your programs around what they value. And then naturally the business will grow from there. And that's how we grew Tiny Transitions to be so successful. Our difference is the access to the coach, the working with the mentor, the quality of the information. Like, my team's awesome. And we really do care about the result. It's not like you're just trying to like crowbar people into a coaching program and move on to the next thing. And I think that's hard, especially in a space of sleep coaching specifically, because it's not regulated. So my husband's a CFO of a commercial lumber company today, and he could be a certified sleep coach by 8 a.m. tomorrow morning. So I think it's like understanding who you're working with too. But nothing comes easily. And if it does, it's probably too good to be true. So I think just that lesson for people that like slow and steady wins the race. And I've grown this company every year, and I just do things different and better. I fail fast when we do fail, and I do fail sometimes. It's not always just rainbows and butterflies, and you look at it, oh, how did I miss that? Or, oh, I could have done that different. When listening to my gut sometimes, I'll make a hire and I'm like, no, don't listen to your gut. Just go with everything. And then I'm like, darn it, I should have listened to my gut.
Yeah. One thing I do have to point out is that you have an incredible work ethic. And when I was in the corporate world and in outside sales, that's something my boss, one in particular, Dennis Olson. Dennis, if you're listening, he always said, Kay, you have the best work ethic. And it's true. I really wanted to serve my clients, my customers. Part of that is being organized and not just wasting time, because I don't have the energy that you do. I'm older, but I also probably never did. So we all have to play into how we each work, right? And to speak to your ideal client who you're serving. Of course, we call that your moose is your ideal target market, but there might be 2 different moose or even more. But I have to make a transition right now. And I have to say, you mentioned going with your gut. Unfortunately, you don't have a gut.
I don't.
Is that too bad to say it like that?
No, it's funny because I'm like, I can't stomach this.
You can't stomach this. We've got to have some puns here because, Courtney, tell us a little bit about your very unusual physical challenge that has not held you back.
Yeah. So in 2018, so it'll be 6 years this December. So in just a couple weeks, I found out I carried a rare genetic mutation. Most people are familiar with BRCA when they've heard that term around breast cancer. So my whole mom's side has cancer and has died from cancer, my mom included. And I'm talking cousins and aunts and uncles and great aunts and grandparents, like everybody. And I told my husband jokingly when we got married, throw a dart at the dartboard, and I'm going to get some sort of cancer at some point in our life. Just know what you're signing up for. And so at 38, my neighbor got breast cancer, also at 38. And I was like, oh, my mom died. They told me to get genetic testing, but at 25, I wasn't paying attention to that. And I had just lost my mom, and I was in my master's program and stuff and working full time. So I never did the genetic testing. And then when my neighbor got breast cancer at 38, I called the local hospital here in Philly, Paoli, it's like a mainline health hospital, and got genetic testing. Found out I have something called CDH1, which is hereditary diffuse gastric cancer. It's a genetic mutation that causes an 85% chance of gastric cancer and a 5% survival, and then about a 35% chance of breast cancer, but not ductal, but lobular. And your risk of dying.
I don't know what that means, but
when you find it. Basically, is there going to be a lump you feel, or is it just inside where you can't see it?
Seeping into the tissues. Okay.
It's diffuse, right? So it just it goes in, and by the time you do feel it, it's generally too late. So I found out I had it. The hospital I got the testing at was like, we've never had anyone actually test positive for this, but we can't help you. So they sent me to the University of Pennsylvania. They didn't actually. They told me they couldn't help me, and I didn't have anywhere to go because they didn't know. And so I found Facebook, and Facebook had a group for people with CDH1. And I ended up finding somebody who was in the area who recommended the doctor. Lo and behold, Penn, which is like a world-renowned hospital here in Philly. There was a doctor, and I emailed him. And 3 minutes after I emailed him, he wrote back, I'll see you tomorrow at 8:00. And I was like, oh,
wow.
Okay. So they took my stomach out. My brother also. So he had the testing once I found out I was positive. My mom carried the gene. We both got it. And the doctors, there's no monitoring of this. There's no preventative. You're going to get your stomach cut out. It's just a matter of when you're prepared to do it, like now.
Now, I have to ask you, how did you feel when you heard that? You just gloss over. Yeah, I had my stomach taken out. How did you feel when you heard, you saw it coming? And good for you for not just sticking your head in the sand, because sometimes I don't want to know. But you really were proactive in finding out about this. But how did you handle that?
Yeah, honestly, I got the genetic testing thinking I would get a colonoscopy at the age of 40. So I thought I'd get screened early because my grandmother had cancer. So I was not expecting this. We did not know we carried it. But honestly, first my question was like, can you live without a stomach, right? Which you can, and I do very normally. But second was, I don't want to die. I had 2 toddlers. This was only 2018. My kids were like 2 and 4 when I found out. My husband's, you're not getting your stomach cut out. You can't live without a stomach. Blah, 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 blah. And then the next day he came to Penn with me. He's like, you're going to cut your stomach out, huh? No kidding. All right, good.
That was extremely radical, but
it was so radical, but it was also like not an option. And he's like, there really is no option. The doctor said, we're going to cut your stomach out. We're either going to do it with chemo, which you're going to need at some point soon, if and when it turns into a tumor, which it will, or we're going to just do it now and we're not going to do the chemo, but we're going to do a prophylactic total gastrectomy, it's called. And then shortly after you heal, you'll have a double mastectomy. This gene is basically a double. So it's like your stomach and your breast, which is why I had both done. Turns out after the surgery, we were in the hospital. So my brother ended up having the surgery on the same day. So Dr. Roses at Penn did it, where he did my gastrectomy first, and then he probably took a lunch break, ate a Wawa hoagie, and then did my brother's gastrectomy after that.
We would laugh, but luckily you did have these things done. But it's wow.
So both 10 days in the hospital. We were the first co-ed roommates ever at Penn for 10 days. We recovered together. We had 2 of the same surgeries, but the recovery was very different for both of us. And we both lived life now. Like, I didn't want to die. I think, a lot of people can look at it and they still do. Honestly, I mentor a lot of the people that they call me, though, can you talk to this patient? They don't want to have their stomach cut out, but they need to because they're going to die. And I talk to at least one person a week from Penn that they send to me because I did it successfully. And I was just down there last week speaking at a gastric cancer symposium because I live without a stomach. I live a totally normal life. My esophagus attaches to my intestines. So I don't have a lot of capacity, but like tonight for dinner, I'm having porterhouse steak, a baked potato, and some asparagus. I just don't eat a lot. So
probably not very much of it, which is probably what we should all do is eat less of that, right?
And I eat more. I would say I eat better now because I eat a whole food diet. Like,
you don't have room for junk food, right?
No, and I can't waste the calories on it, and your body doesn't want it. So guess what happens when you eat a Dorito? Diarrhea for 3 days. Nobody wants that, right? But if I eat a steak and baked potato, totally fine. So it's amazing your body can adapt to it. The biggest thing I don't absorb is nutrients. So I have to take a lot of supplements, and I do them with lunches and different things. But other than that, I like live a totally normal life. But it was crazy because you could take it one way, which is like glass half empty. Woe is me. I lost my stomach. Everything sucks. And it was, believe me, it wasn't like get a root canal fix. Like, I'd cut my stomach out and I was working full time with 2 toddlers. It was a year of recovery, but it was I'm recovering because I don't want to die. And how can I do this? What can I control? Again, back to the type A. So it's like I live, and so does my brother, successfully without our stomachs. And will my kids get tested at some point? Absolutely. Will the surgery be better and more advanced in 20 years when they have to get their stomachs out? Probably, for sure. But both of us had the stomach removal preventatively, and we both had already stage 1 stomach cancer, and we didn't know.
Wow. So definitely the right decision. Good for you for being proactive, and also inspiring for me because we have this problem in our yard where raccoons are tearing up the turf to try to get the grubs that are underneath. And it's very distressing. And then I think about someone like you and your story, or a million other people out there that have stories that are much tougher. So it's inspiring to me that you have such a good attitude. I'm sure there were tears, rough times, lots of things, praying, but you got through it, and you're very upbeat and you're very committed to helping other people. You said you want to feel joy at the end of every day. And I'd like you to talk to the listener about what you can do as a coach or a speaker for the listener. How can you help people who are listening?
Yeah, absolutely. I think to your point, when I was in my 20s, I was like, I want to make money and climb the ladder. And then in my 30s, I had my kids, I had my stomach cut out, I had my husband, and I wanted to feel balanced because it was a very busy time in my 30s. And then in my 40s, I switched to more of this. I want to feel authentic. I want to make an impact. I want to spend more time volunteering and do lunch duty at my kids' school and just have an impact in a positive way. I think innately, I've always been a teacher. And even when I wrote that thesis at 24 about the kaleidoscope career types, as it's formally called, I did not recognize I'd be living it. And how I work with people today, it's interesting because I feel like I'm myself going through my own, identity shift, if you will, a bit. I've built this really amazing sleep consulting business, and I love it. And I get to mentor around 200 sleep consultants all around the world, and it's been really fun. And so I get the benefit of working with the families and helping my team to grow, to be better and build their careers. But then I also get the mentoring and the coaching with those sleep consultants, which fed my innate, I'm a business person. Like, I trained in business. I love business. I'm great at business. And I'm always trying to innovate in different ways, like teaching people. I think there's a lot of business coaches out there, Kay, honestly, that are like, oh, just build the thing. And they don't even know how to build the thing. They're just listening to the coach who told them to build the thing, to tell other people to build the thing. I'm a strategic person. I like to look at people's businesses and go, here's how I would do it different and better. Here's how I would do it. So I think outside the box a lot, and people are like, no kidding, I never would have thought of that. And I also like to show them tactically how to do it. So a lot of business coaches are very high level and strategic, and that's great for them, that they're the strategy person and then you find somebody else to do the implementing. I like to do both. And it's been really fun for me because I get the strategy side of here's how I would fix it. Oh, and let me show you how to fix it. Or when I have people that hire me to do that on both sides, I don't want to get away from the tactical. I enjoy the tactical and the troubleshooting of certain things. I do a lot with like lead list building and scraping and data scraping. And people are like, how do you know how to web scrape? And people might not even know what web scraping is, but I build lists. So one of my clients was like, my daughter's trying to find an internship in California for psychology or human resources. Can you scrape a list for that? Absolutely. So just like in the past 2 weeks, she gave my name to a friend who gave my name to a friend. And I've built like a whole bunch of different lists for these college students to use their time efficiently and have a list of like 400 internships doing exactly what they want to do. And they just can go down the list in a bunch. So I think it's just, I work with people in so many different ways because it's, do you need help with competitive intel or SEO or a website or strategic? What are you doing in your business that's not working? So I think it's fun because it started with the strategy work with sleep consultants. It was really just my friends that I certified with 10 years ago that were like doing things, trying to build their business, but they weren't business people. They were nurses or teachers. And I'm like, oh, you guys should check this out. Oh, you should do this. Oh, you should try this. And then my friend Louise, who's in Singapore, still a sleep coach over there, said to me, you know what, can you just teach me? Can I just pay you and just teach me? Like, you should just launch a course and teach me how to do everything that you know how to do. And I did that. And 50 other sleep consultants joined it when we did this mastermind called The Lab. And I just walked them through all the components of a business, but I actually showed them how to do it so they were confident and competent within their own business. And they weren't relying on other people who in some cases were taking advantage of them. And they coined me the accidental business coach. So it's been fun because my whole world for 15 years was business. Then it became sleep. And now I get the benefit of doing both. I sometimes speak on sleep. Sometimes I speak on business. Sometimes I speak at the Cancer Symposium at Penn on surviving stomach cancer. So there's just different things and I think I'm blessed at my age now to go, what do I want to do? Like my goal every night is to lay down and feel joy. And this year's been tough for me because I am trying to figure out, like, what do I want to do? How do I want to have an impact? And my kids are getting older and I'm like, oh, maybe I'll teach a course at the middle school on how to build a business. And I just emailed the principal yesterday. I'm like, you want me to do an after school club on I'm just always trying to have an impact in a positive way. Ultimately, I want to feel joy. I don't need to make $3 billion a month and be like, I made 7 figures this month. No, you didn't. Calm down. And even if you did, good for you. It's not it's not my top of mind anymore. I'm having fun with just trying new things. I've got a new product that's on a cargo ship right now, coming from overseas. It's the first product I've ever launched. And I don't want to talk too much about it because I haven't trademarked the name yet, but I got to wait till the website's up to get the service mark filed and stuff. But it's on its way. It should be here in 18 to 23 days, but I've never launched a product before. And it was just something where I'm like, you know what? How do you make a product? How do you design? How do you get it ordered? Yeah. So
let's figure it out. You are definitely, like we said, type A, and you're always looking for opportunities. I like that you mentioned, okay, you helped families when they were at the stage you were, where you had a new baby and you couldn't figure out how to sleep and organize all this. Now you're at a different stage and you're seeing other families, other people with needs who want to start businesses, who have no idea what web scraping is. And I have had a couple of women I've interviewed on different tech tools, including ways that you can do that. And I'll put those episodes in the show notes. But also I want to, as we wrap up here, put Courtney's resources in the show notes too, because you can contact Courtney on LinkedIn, also through her company, Tiny Transitions. And then you also have CourtneyZentz.com, where you do present more of your consulting, speaking, that type of opportunities. Please be sure to look at the show notes and check Courtney out. You're just a powerhouse. You're a pistol. So do you have any closing thoughts as we head out today of how you can just bring your audience to the point where they can feel joy each night like you do?
Yeah, I think honestly, give yourself grace. Like, we are in a hard time right now. Nothing is as easy as it seems. And so give yourself grace and be confident in whatever you decide is right for you with wherever you are in your life or your business. I think there's a lot of shaming that goes on today, especially in social media. And it doesn't matter where you are. Trust what you're doing, and whether it's sleep and working with a sleep consultant, maybe like someone on Tiny Transitions, or whether you're in your business and you're like, I'm going to take this leap of faith. You have to have confidence and trust the process, and then put the right puzzle pieces together to get you to the end goal. You can't just expect that you're going to wake up overnight and have your golden nugget. So just give yourself grace, because it's really easy to be your worst critic. I'm sometimes guilty of it. And those are days I just step back and I go outside and cut the grass and I take a walk for an hour and I'm like, okay, let me jump back in. Because trying to do things when your head is just spinning or you're exhausted or you're just overwhelmed, what can you control? We were talking about time blocking. Over at CourtneyZentz.com, I have a printable that gives you some different strategies. There's tons of free information and trainings, but one of them is my time blocking template. And I do it. I eat my own dog food, right? Like, I printed it out, I laminated, and every quarter, which I'm doing right now, I block out like, when am I working? And then what are the things I have to do? Don't have unrealistic expectations of what you're going to do in your business. If you want to make X amount of dollars, how? And work backwards, right? Like, I time block and I go, all right, well, if I have to write a blog, record a podcast, be on someone's podcast, write website copy, create a CRM, build a nurture, build the newsletter, and service clients. Like, when are you getting all that done? So don't come out of the gate and be like, I'm going to make $7 million this year. Working an hour a day, you're probably not. Just have realistic goals, because otherwise I think you set yourself up for failure. And that's where it's like Tiny Transitions grew every year over year because I made tiny transitions. Like, I didn't boil the ocean in a day. I didn't even take it full time till I was doing it for 5 years. You just have to like trust what you're doing and have that confidence that you're the boss of whatever space you're in.
All great stuff. Fantastic. Courtney, this has been a great conversation. Everybody, head over to Tiny Transitions and get that productivity form. I was looking at something, and one of the top searched for keyword is productivity. And time blocking is huge. If you don't have a way to do that, sounds like Courtney can help all of us.
Yeah, so the sleep stuff is at tinytransitions.com, and then the time blocking is over at CourtneyZentz.com.
There you go. Yes, so CourtneyZentz.com. Go get that time block planner. Thank you so much for spending this time on the podcast.
And thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Uncopyable Women in Business. If you enjoyed the show, you know the drill. Please like, share, rate, and review it on your favorite platform.